You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Doug Thorpe, and this is another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. I hope you're off to a great start in your day today, and we are going to hopefully add to that momentum. My guest is a gentleman who has made it a life's journey to empower and encourage others for a winning way. He's the author of a book called DNA of a Winner. And without further ado, let me introduce Brad Dalton. Brad, welcome to the show.
So excited to be hanging out with you and your people, Doug. It's going to be good.
I appreciate you coming on board here. So, as is a little bit of a tradition here on the show, Brad, give us a little bit of backstory. How did you get into what you're doing today?
Oh, man. Well, I'm a lifelong eager to pleaser. I mean, people have always been my juice, dating back to when I was a little ankle biter. And, in terms of getting into the coaching and the speaking end of things, it's really been a deal where I was fortunate to be around a lot of good people. I wasn't always a high self-esteem guy. I wasn't always a guy that saw myself to be speaking on stages and coaching people all over the world and whatnot. It was a deal where I'd put myself in a position where there were people in front of me that really cared. And I just became more confident just being in the same room as those kind of people. And I was like, man, I want to be that guy. I want to be like that person. So the more I did it, the more I liked how it tasted and how the success of the whole thing felt. And then just my little stumbles along the way just made it all the sweeter.
So I mentioned your book title, DNA of a Winner. Where did you get that inspiration? What's that all about?
Well, I'd done mental performance coaching for years and whatnot. I had a bunch of stuff in place, but I hadn't really thought about publishing anything. And then right around COVID, I just, we couldn't see our people. I'd really stayed kind of local at the time. I wasn't trying to expand at that time. And I just like, how am I going to speak with my people? So I kind of like you right now, I decided I'm going to start a podcast. And I'm pretty sure I wasn't very good at it at first. But the right people heard it. Tony Robbins, publisher at the time, heard it and liked what I was bringing to the table, got in touch with me and said, hey, we'd love to do a book with you. And I was like, man, how do I turn that down? And so we went to work, and man, it's just so many other good things have come out of it. And obviously I expanded and whatnot after that.
Well, very good. Well, congratulations on that find and that opportunity. So tell us a little bit about the principles or ideas that you present in that book.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those deals where you might look at the chapters, you might look at what's inside it just from the table of contents, and you might not think it's that much more sexy than the one that's right next to it on the bookshelf. But I think in life, and you may think it's really sexy, but I think anything in life, it's not what you have in front of you, it's what you do with what you have in front of it. So the content inside of it, I mean, most good leaders, most good coaches, they talk about attitude and choosing the right attitude and how it is a choice. I mean, I think a lot of us talk about that, but we talk about some of the same things. We talk about how success is a choice, and that choice itself is just an illusion. I mean, technically, do you have a choice to do this, that, or the other thing? You bet. We got choices 24 hours a day, right? But it's really not a choice if you want to be elite or if you want to be great. I mean, I don't know your background, but I have kids. I want to be a great father. I have clients. I want to be a great coach. I have people paying me to get on stages to have a positive impact. I don't want to just be good. I want to be great. I don't want to settle for mediocrity. I'd rather choke on excellence. And so it's not a choice if you want to be great. And so we talk about stuff like that. We talk about how confidence is an action. Confidence isn't something you get. Confidence is body language. It's focus. It's self-talk. It's presenting yourself like a 10-foot beast and speaking and and it's not so much in life, it's not about becoming what you think about, it's becoming what you believe you are. And I mean, that's just a few nuggets, but yeah, talks about stuff that's going to help you be better 6 inches between your ears, and hopefully help the people around you, the people you care the most about, become better with the 6 inches between their ears.
Well, you've touched on a popular topic, and I'm certainly a fan of it in my own executive coaching realm, leadership development work. There is much said about mindset being the starting point, and you alluded to the 6 inches between your ears, and I used to do a lot of work in the real estate world in banking, and I've now argued that the most valuable piece of real estate on the planet is that 6 inches between your ears. Yeah. And if you can learn how to optimize, maximize, and think right about where you're going. But talk to us a little more about this notion of, being great is not really a choice. So what is it?
Well, it's a non-negotiable if you want to be great. I mean, in terms of and to me, greatness and success is not what most people think. Most people, when they think of winning, they think of some sort of destination or some sort of achievement or some external validation. Success isn't the end of the road. Success is the road. Success is all the stuff that happens in the process. Success is, I feel like we've almost lost respect for the word for winning. Everyone thinks of winning and they think of something that happens at the end, but the great ones really don't believe there's that. Like, gosh, this is a bigger topic, but I mean, as I've gone through my own journey, and with my people I work with, are goals important? Absolutely. We all should have goals, but I urge people to become less goal conscious and more growth conscious. When you're growth conscious, you're thinking about winning repeatedly. When you're goal conscious, there's an end to that, generally speaking. You have a goal, you reach a goal, and then what? And then what?
Yeah, so what?
Right. There's always something else, right? And so if you're a person that's into the success road, if you're a person that's into the process, if you're a person that's into all the things that lead you to becoming who it is you say you want to become, that's the sexy part to me. That's the fun part to me. That's the sustainable part to me. That's the part where you can win repeatedly. And it's also allows you to, because we all dip our toes in pity city. We all get slugged in the gut in life. Life's going to sucker punch us. Things aren't always going to go our way. We're going to fall on our face at times. And if you're a person that's strictly into destinations and achievements, the more goal conscious heavy person, you're not just going to dip your toes in pity city. You're going to take a full body heave in it, and it's going to be hard to get out. But if you're a person that is into the success road, you're going to still dip your toes in it, but you're not going to stay in it. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, what comes to my mind, part of that is that for those who spend their life chasing goals, inevitably you hear a lot about they get there, they get that corner office, they get that title, they get that car, that perk, that bonus, whatever. But then they wake up the next morning and they're asking themselves, so what, or what's really next? And what I'm hearing you say is if you change that thinking, that it's not about the destination, but it is about the journey. I do, in my own mind, I'm correlating with, the great college coach, Nick Saban, who, he had a process and everything was the process. Winning was the process, not the final score on the board when the game was over. And, right. And he totally turned that thinking upside down, that if you do the process right, do it repeatedly and do it at ever increasing levels, you're going to get that win on the scoreboard when it's over. That's going to be a secondary outcome of your effort during the journey.
Right. And the beautiful thing, and I love that Nick Saban does have a lot of good stuff in that. What I love about the process too is it becomes more human focused. Like these become traits and really character traits and traits that are cross curricular. You become a better person. You become a better teammate. You become a better colleague. You become a better parent. You become a bunch of things. Is it going to guarantee you, like say a Nick Saban, former head football coach at Alabama, uh, is it going to guarantee you that you're going to win in the national championship? It's not going to guarantee you that, but it's going to guarantee you your best shot at it. And they're all things that you can use in your entire life. You're going to become a better human being. And I mean, this is such a big topic, but when you're just focused on an end goal, a destination, one of those things, you also tend to be a little bit less patient. And you start letting anxiety take over your life. You start choosing to be stressed over choosing to be blessed. Also a choice. And it just creates a really bad spiral effect down. You start nosediving in more areas than just football or work or whatever. It starts impacting your entire life.
If I may ask, and put you on the spot here a little bit, reading your bio, you're vocal about the fact you are a parent of a child on the autism spectrum. Some might look at that scenario and say, oh, woe is me. Why did I get impacted that way? Share with us how you've chosen to look at it.
Yeah, I see it as an awesome opportunity. Now, for about 15 minutes after he was originally diagnosed, I mean, when I tell the story, I mean, we get the diagnosis, and man, I was probably going 25 and a 35. I felt like, because I was a college athlete, my wife was a college athlete, we both very personable, pretty social, that kind of stuff. And we had been career educators at the time and had had so many beautiful relationships with kids on the spectrum and kids with a variety of needs, but we knew what was coming. It wasn't that we didn't love those kids that we had taught. It was that we knew the challenges that were coming. We knew how society looked at non-typical. We knew that he'd probably get bullied. We knew that he'd probably get passed over. We knew that he would be unjustly looked at and looked down on. And we just knew it was all coming. And so, yeah, I felt like I'd been slugged in the gut for about 15, 20 minutes there. And by the time I got into my driveway that day, I sat in there, lips quivering, eyes swelling, hands shaking for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then I said it out loud in my car. This is ridiculous. Doing this is not going to make him better. It's not going to give him his best life. It's not good for me. It's not good for him. What have I got to do in the next 15 years? He was 3 years old at the time. What have I got to do in the next 15 years to give him the best life possible? And so from then moving on, I mean, I was a forward-minded thinker then, but man, it just became a non-negotiable. Growth became the only stat that mattered in my life. And it bled into the rest of my life. Everything in my life. If it's not going to help me moving into the next 15 seconds, it has no, we mentioned mental real estate. It has no space in this if it's not going to help me in the next 15 seconds. And we did that with him, and I've done it with my entire life. It's been a game changer for me. It's made me aggressively patient. It's made me understand how important it is to meet others where they're at. It's made me I felt like I was a pretty kind guy before, but I've become more kind. I feel like every super leader is a super listener. I've understand more than ever that when we give off feelings, even if it's just the tone of our voice, or maybe it's the projection or whatever, it really is true that like energy never disappears. It only transfers. If you scream at a kiddo on the autism spectrum, even if it's just a 5-word sentence, that could sound like 5,000 words to them. And so it's going to create all kinds of issues. But, there's people listening right now, they're the same thing, that aren't diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, and they can think of a time right now where someone just started going off on them and it just completely ruined their day. And then it had a domino effect where they maybe took it out on someone else. Energy doesn't disappear, it only transfers. And it's the same thing for positive. Man, if the first thing people get out of you every day is something positive, even if it's just a smile, you're setting the tone for an awesome day. If you send someone a text that took 15 seconds to do in the morning, 15 seconds to do in the morning, you sent them a random text. You didn't even speak to them, but it was totally random, total random act of kindness. You're setting the tone for that person's day. You're also building relationships. But anyway, there you go. Sorry. I get kind of fired up.
I love it. And part of what you said in there is something that I certainly advocate with clients. And I've actually spoken about it literally today a couple of times in a couple of coaching sessions. It's the idea of creating that personal vision. You were talking about sitting in the driveway with this news weighing in on you, and you said, no, wait a minute. That's not the vision I've got. That's not the roadmap I want to paint for his life and what I can do for him. So you you make a decision to basically write a different story.
Yeah.
And then that story becomes your roadmap on where you want to go.
Yeah. That's just the thing. I mean, and if you have, for all those that have kids, they would totally understand. Like, you have this vision, and you have this like picture of what you think you want it to look like, but a lot of times we're making that picture based around things, and not necessarily about who we wish them to become. We know that we want them to become good human beings, but most of us are visioning achievements and destinations and college and all these things that aren't the juice. Like, they aren't the process. And that's, the map looked much different after that day, but the map's been pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking about here, and the point to make is that it's important to have the map and do the work to really think about that direction you do want to go. And it is more than, I like what you said, I really do. And I hadn't really thought about it this way. It's more than simply looking at your A versus B and making a choice, but it's about defining that vision map or the process you want to live by, so that you pave that road of success that you're talking about.
Right. Yep. It's all about feeding the behaviors. From my end, what behaviors, what identity are we feeding? That really becomes a question that I ask frequently with myself, with my family, with my clients, with my whatever. What are we feeding? Because we're feeding something. Are we feeding the energy vampire? Are we feeding the positive dog? Are we feeding whatever it is we wish them to become? And for me, the focus is always about the 6 inches between our ears and just character.
Yeah.
Literally the who. So.
That reminds me, and I think Tony Robbins talks about this. There's a famous Indian lore story about the great chieftain sitting around the campfire and the young warriors asking him questions. And he described that, in his inner being, there was a white wolf and a black wolf always at war. And one of the young warriors said, well, which one wins? And he said, it's the one I feed.
Yeah. No, I love that story. So true.
That is very true as we go through life of deciding which one to feed, that's going to influence how we're looking at life. And I also love what you said about identity. And it reminds me for those who might be familiar with the Hogan personality assessment tools, Dr. Hogan himself talks about the difference between our personal identities and our ultimate reputations. And he talks about the identity being that story we tell ourselves. versus the reputation we create by how we are engaging the world around us, how we make other people feel, what we make them remember about who and what we are. And sometimes it's very important to take a pause and assess, is my identity story lining up the way I want it to? Is it having the impact and the result that I do intend it to have?
Right.
And if your reputation feedback says nay, you've got to make that adjustment.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I talk about having audits. So you look at your core values. Let's say you list your top five core values in order, and then you look at your previous 30 days. If you did an audit of your thoughts, conversations, actions, whatever from the previous 30 days, where would those top five rank? I think a lot of us just shoot from the hip and they're not living life, they're skimming life. And they don't realize that they have things that aren't even their top five that are outweighing the thing that's maybe number two on your core value list. You don't even realize it, and you just keep doing it over and over and over, and it's really unhealthy.
Yeah, it really is. So, Brad, when you maybe start working with a new client, what's your typical process for leaning in and opening up this lid of opportunity?
Well, I think the most important thing for any leader is to make relationships your true power grid. So I think the most important thing when I first have that first call or first meeting is that I let them know that they are heard, because everyone, you, me, we're all looking for acceptance, belonging, and connection. And so that first conversation is really about getting to know them, just listening, probably spending 70 to 80% of my time listening, 20% of my time talking, and just burning a hole in my paper taking notes. I think it's so important. And then, after the conversation, I always send a follow-up. I want them to know that I heard what they were saying. And based on that conversation, we always create a customized plan for that person. So whatever it is that's specific to their situation, whatever it is they need, a lot of times what they think they need isn't actually what they need. Usually people come to me looking for results, and that's just not how I work. I'm a process-oriented guy. We track habits, so we audit our habits and on the daily, and the habits are really tiny catalysts that lead them to actions that lead them to whatever it is they actually say they want. Because a lot of them say they want this stuff, but some of them aren't willing to do the work to get there. Some of them are, but they need an accountability partner. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here with you, but it always starts with that. It's not me taking the action I'm taking is listening, and the goal is for them to feel heard. And then the next conversation, obviously there's always a follow-up. There's a follow-up before our next actual Zoom or our next meetup or whatever. There's a follow-up before that. Again, I want them to know the relationship part's important to me. So I'm not going to wait until the next time we have something on the calendar to say something. I'm not going to wait till then. So if I had a meeting on Wednesday and we're supposed to meet up again the next Wednesday, they're going to hear from me sometime between now and then a couple times. Not some long-winded message or anything like that. Just make it a great day. Was thinking about you on the way in today. Champions separate themselves on Fridays. I hope you have a great day today. Or, I don't know. It could be anything. Something positive. And then, whatever it is they need, we go into that on the second one, and we start getting a little more minute, a little more molecular, and getting after it.
Yeah. There's a great concept one of my guests talked about recently, is the idea of learning and unlearning, and the critical importance of occasionally, we have to agree to unlearn something we've already developed, because maybe it's just not quite going to measure up or not quite going to give us the impact we would like it to. So it's a matter of agreeing that, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. But it's unlearning a belief or a thought, or maybe something that got pre-programmed along the way that it's a streaming message you really don't need to hear anymore.
Right. Yeah. There's, a lot of them too. I don't know if you can relate, but a lot of them feel like they have a concept, but when I explain to them that 85% of the world's unaware that they're unaware, you're just unaware that you're unaware. It doesn't make you a bad person. 85% of the world is unaware that they're unaware about something in their life that they deem is important. 85% of the world. So you're really close to normal, buddy. Yeah, unlearning, that kind of makes me think of that when I hear you talk about unlearning, for sure.
You talk about awareness and being unaware. My wife and I marvel when we get out on the road how many people have seemingly no situational awareness of what's going on, the traffic zipping by, or the intersection you're coming up on, just, no particular consideration for anything else going on there
Right.
at that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so let me ask you this, Brad. Amazing ideas, beautiful thoughts, wonderful principles to think about living by. Where do you think you got all this? Who mentored, shaped, and guided you along the way?
I've been pretty fortunate. I know that hard work has put me in a lot of positions to be successful, but I've really been, it's accumulation of people. My son has taught me a ton. My youngest son has taught me a ton. The situations that I had really no choice. Like, I didn't get a choice that he was on the spectrum. That wasn't a choice. Just like it wasn't a choice that I was going to do everything I could to help him have the best life possible. He's been the greatest teacher, and the moments and situations and scenarios that I've had to endure and improvise and adapt and overcome with no experience parenting a kid on the spectrum in advance. Those have been my greatest teachers. But I had some great professors in college that taught me about perspective. Frankly, I've learned maybe not just as much, but I've learned a lot about things from people that I don't necessarily respect, or people that weren't great teachers or great coaches or great leaders. I've learned what not to do. And we can learn something from every scenario. It's not just the people that you see flash up on your feed or on TV and whatnot in terms of like they're doing really well. You can learn a lot from people who aren't doing well also. So I've learned from both. They had a lot of success in a lot of different arenas. And man, I'm just a lifelong learner, Doug. I'm 12 months out of the year, I'm investing in myself. The growth part is the fun part. Yeah. And so it may just be a couple nuggets from this program or the next program, but I got my general scheme. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. And then I'm always just trying to pluck things to add to create a better experience for my people and frankly, a better experience for me as well, selfishly.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it the patchwork quilt effect, and I've written and spoken on this myself, that some of the best leaders I've ever known, the reality is they are a patchwork quilt of those little pieces and remnants of good attributes, good principles, good beliefs, good practices that they've seen in others that have been imparted to them. And they've experienced it, and they've said, I want to be that. I want to have some of that. So they've chosen to weave it into the whatever leadership framework or, that life vision board we talked about.
Mm-hmm. I like that patchwork quilt.
Paint it into the picture, and there's some great beauty in some of that kind of abstract. It doesn't have to be a giant perfect square. It's truth be told, it's usually an accumulation of something from a lot of other contributors.
Right. Well, you know what I love about that patchwork quilt analogy too is that everyone's quilt's going to look different, and you learn a lot about them. I love different cultures. I love different perspectives. And when you start really stepping back and observing someone else's patchwork quilt, you learn a lot about them, and you learn to appreciate different things. And I love that. I love that analogy. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And as many of my listeners know, I've talked about it before. I wrote an article at Thanksgiving about it. I'm a big fan of mentorship. I was raised the only child of a single mom, and she had the wisdom to surround me with mentors. She started recruiting people when I was just like Boy Scout age. She started bringing people into my life. And it became a way of life such that when I went off to college, I was not afraid to walk up to somebody and say, I've watched you. You seem to have a gift for doing X.
Right.
Would you spend a minute and tell me how you figured that out, how you developed that skill? I'm just curious, and 99 times out of 100, people always said, yes, for sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people like that. Most people like that. Most people enjoy you being curious about something that they're passionate about.
Yeah. Coming up to it. Well, Brad, I think we're about up on time for today. Thank you so much for sitting in. Tell folks the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about your work and your book and all the great things you do.
You bet. Well, you can find DNA of a Winner, Brad Dalton, on Amazon. Just punch it in the search bar. It's right there. If you want to just have a conversation, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and my Instagram account's best_selfu. If you want to just email me, brad@braddaltongroup.com. Any of those, I'm always up for a conversation. And I would love that. Thanks for the time, Doug.
Yeah, you bet. And thank you. And as always, folks, we're going to have those links in the show notes. So please make a mental note and drop down when you get a chance to check out Brad and his work. And I do like to remind you, we've got a video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there. Check out the archive. And most importantly, selfishly, I will ask, please leave me a comment or give me a suggestion for any new topics or speakers, guests or would like to see. And I'm always open. If you yourself think you might be a great guest for the show, drop me a line, let me know that. You can get my information over on my website at dougthorpe.com. And for now, we're going to sign off, say goodbye, and go out there and make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.